Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. The Uncanny X-Men 223 from 1987. Mark Silvestri has done two issues 220, no, three issues, sorry. 220, 221, and 222, and he's already needing a off issue. And we'll have Kerry Gammill be the fill-in artist. He also does this cover. Now, I do like Kerry Gammill, and after Mark Silvestri left the X-Men, before Jim Lee, there was I don't know. The X-Men were struggling, I believe, to get good artists. And Kerry Gammill is actually pretty decent. And I am surprised they didn't pick him up or someone kind of to bridge. Because he's not a bad artist. There were artists that were available during that time, and they just never picked him up. And I'll talk more about that when we get to those issues. We're still quite a bit away from them, but all right. So we've got Storm, and we've got Naze, who we know is the adversary, and this gigantic snake. And so Omens and Portents, or maybe Kerry Gammill doesn't do the inside. 1 second here. Yeah, he does do the inside. For some reason, I thought it looked like Jackson Geis. So that's why I hesitated here. So, Omens and Portents. And so we're in Washington, D.C., in Georgetown to be specifically. Chris Claremont lets us know that we're about a mile from the White House here. And if you remember, we from X-Men 215 and 216, we've got the Crimson Dynamo and Stonewall. So they are those two old soldiers, and Valerie Cooper, who is right here, is going to have them join Freedom Force. And this is actually a pretty cool splash page here. They are both handcuffs here. You see all the police officers or guards. And so we got our credits of Chris Claremont is our longtime writer. He still has quite a few issues left. Kerry Gammill is the guest penciler. Dan Green, the old inker here. Tom Rozakowski has been lettering this sucker. Deserves every award for having to letter this many words. And then Anna Senti is the editor-in-chief. And Tom DeFalco Anna Senti is the regular editor. And Tom DeFalco takes over as editor-in-chief here at Marvel Comics. Jim Shooter, rest in peace, has been unceremoniously fired. There's tons of videos on that available on YouTube. Feel free to check them out. Mystique then complains about Valerie forcing another member upon them, especially since Spider-Woman had betrayed them. This happened in Avengers Annual 15, in which Quicksilver had framed the Avengers, so Freedom Force was sent to get them, but they discovered it was a setup, and Spider-Woman released them, and now Spider-Woman is a fugitive. By the way, the Spider-Woman referred here is not Jessica Drew. I forgot her name, but it's the one from Secret Wars, the one that wears the black and white costume. By the way, here we have Mystique, Blob, Spiral, and the guy that controls the fires, Pyro, I think. And so she said, Spider-Woman was my mistake. That's why the rest of you weren't penalized when she deserted the team. It won't happen again. And so you see that the cuffs are being released, and Mystique says the deal's simple. We play the federal game, we get pardoned. Any one of us breaks parole by committing a crime or destroying or deserting, everyone else pays the price. Try double cross, gentlemen. You'll answer to me with your lives, she says. And Pyro says, ask me, boss. My old gran in Woolloomooloo, wherever that is, can take these two. And so, of course, they're referring to their age because they've been around since World War II. So even in 1987, they would be in their 60s. And the Blob says, "Man, Pyro, you Aussies, meaning Australian, think your grandmas can take on anybody. I never met a whole country had such an attitude," he says. Of course, this time for once, you may be right. Way I hear tell, Mr. Stonewall, you're supposed to be the guy who can't be knocked down. Only Storm did it to you twice. Shoot, anything that skinny, scrawny X-Men skirt can do, and you can see the Blob is gonna try it here. The Blob can do better, and then he falls here, and you can see a smile being put in. So he is enjoying himself, and so he's like, "Oh no, my favorite chips, my brews, my favorite chair." And so Crimson Dynamo says, "In his prime, nothing could knock Stony down, but age takes a toll even on the best of us. Storm caught him by surprise. He's a proud man. He won't be caught off guard so easily again. All of us have flaws, Mystique, and weaknesses. But isn't the purpose of a team and teamwork to compensate for them, to make the whole greater and deadlier than the sum of its parts?" And Pyro says, "You're a cocky old codger, chum, but don't forget, you're the new lads." And so you can see Pyro controlling the flame here. You want a place with us, you earn it. And so Spiral says, I've noticed this a lot on other issues. Somehow, the letters, you can see make ready to put your are done by someone else, probably some editorial. So I don't know whether they discovered there was an error, and so they couldn't get it to Orzakowski, so somebody else had to letter. But there's quite a few instances where you can see somebody else lettering it. So he says, make ready to put your ability to confide to serious use. An intruder approaches, I go to teach him the error of his ways. And of course, they're referring to the Super Sabre who is coming. Now here's Avalanche, who is working he's a gardener. And he sees this here. So that's Super Sabre, if you remember who he is. He's the speedster here. And so Spiral appears and trips him here. And she's going to try to kill him. And suddenly, you can see she's holding him. Shall I slay him for you? And you can see no being coming from the distance real quick. I love the dry brush being applied there. And so they tell him, hey, this is Super Saver. And they said, you thought you were killed. How the devil did you surprise? I was in 216. And so he says, you know me, I've always been tough to kill. Been laying low, licking my wounds, biding my time. I'd figure I'd come bust you or join you myself. And she's like, arrogant little man, what makes you think? And suddenly there's a scream from Destiny here. You can see here. And she says, Irene, what's wrong, old friend? She says, darkness, maw teeth tearing. And she says, it's all right, dear heart, you're safe now. Now, keep in mind, it's the 80s. These still have a relationship. It's always been implied, but there is just, during this time, it is, again, it's the middle of the 80s, and as progressive as things have become, it was still the middle of the 80s. And so she says, I use my precognitive talent because Destiny can see the future. So Mystique is a shapeshifter, and Destiny can see the future. And she's saying, check in on our foster daughter, Rogue, as I do from time to time, searching the future for any significant threats to her life. Mystique, I found Oblivion. I searched every conceivable time stream, not merely for a trace of Rogue, but her teammates as well. The result was the same. Mystique, sometime very soon, the X-Men are going to die. So, of course, she is referring to the mutant fall of the mutants, not mutant massacre. That's already happened. All right, so we get this here, and of course, when you're reading this, I I bought this comic every month. In 1987, I was 13. So some parts still kind of confused me. I was still pretty new to the X-Men. I started my first issue of X-Men was X-Men 210, right before the Mutant Massacre, and you know, but during this time, classic X-Men was going on. So even though the gaps were being filled little by little, it was there was still a chunk of the X-Men that I had no knowledge of anything. So it wasn't like nowadays that you can just pick up a website or anything and just find out, or read comic books digitally. So love the dry brush being applied there by Dan Green. Rest in peace, Dan Green. And so now we're in the Rocky Mountains. We've got Storm trying to catch a fish here for dinner. And so she apologizes to the fish, but she says, but our need for food is too great. And she's like, Naze, I have him. So most of the time, and I have explained this before, the accent is supposed to be on the E, but once in a while, Orzechowski puts it on the Z. The accent is on the E, which tells me that you are supposed to pronounce the E. That's why it's Naze, not Naze. It's just once in a while this accent moves, but it's supposed to be on the E. And so she trips when the fish tries to get her and says, behold dinner. I can't believe both of them are going to eat this fish. She needs another one. And so she manages to catch him, and she's all wet. The water's got to be freezing cold. And so Naze is not doing very well, and he collapses here. She yells out his name. Again, the accent is being put in here, but if you remember from 220 and 221, the accent just kept flipping. But you wouldn't put an accent on a consonant because the accent is supposed to be for pronunciation. And the Z only has one sound, so it's to pronounce the E. In Spanish, it's to denote force. Like, for example, my name has an accent, so most people in English say Jose, but it's actually Jose. And you can see there's an emphasis. That's the word, emphasis, on the E. So it's Jose. And so it's supposed to be Naze. Anyway, so she says the man was always lean, but now he feels a little more than skin and bones, and his flesh burning to touch with a fever. I'm ashamed. I was so absorbed in myself, my happiness. I was never realized he was ill. Thank the goddess we have this line shack. Naze knew of for shelter, so she picks him up and takes him. And she says, we're going down the mountain. Rest easy, my friend. Soon you will be in the hospital. And she says, no doctor, no white man's medicine. Won't do any good. Caught some venom from those demons we fought. That was in the previous issue. I figured my own magics could handle it. Wrong. Closer we come to Forge's Eyrie, the mountain that's his place of power. Stronger his influence grows. Enough now to overwhelm my spells. Worse to come, Storm. I can sense it tonight. Can't help this time. You gotta fight and win alone, he says. So, of course, we know Naze is dead, and this is someone else inside his body, known as the adversary, like some kind of demon. And I have a playlist. Feel free to check out the playlist. I believe it was X-Men. Oh my goodness, 183. could be. So, all right. And so we are in Queens here. This guy here is reporting and asking people about mutants, and all these people are like, mutants are bad, and they're freaks. And then his buddy here, he says, even though they're not the same color, they're still people. And these two are very friends. And he says, any baby of mine was born a mutie. I tell ya, I'm a religious man. I believe in the sacraments, but I won't let that abomination even be born. As God as my witness and judge, I'd kill the monster. I love this thing. By the way, Kerry Gammill is very Mark Silvestri like. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but Kerry Gammill is actually pretty good. So we are still in San Francisco, and they're talking about the issues 221 and 222 where they face the Marauders here. And since they're not in New York, they don't have a danger room, so they're gonna practice on each other. So a lot of thinking, and so Chris Claremont uses that to kind of let the readers know about their powers and what's been happening. And so it's a way to use it as a to move the story, but allow readers, um, if you're a new reader, Chris, it's from Jim Shooter's rule where every comic is somebody's first issue. So try to give them the information. So we've got Rogue here, and we have Psylocke, and she's a telepath, and she's using her powers to allow Rogue kind of to see what everybody else is sort of doing. And they're in Alcatraz here, and we have Longshot, and by the way, he really does have four fingers or three fingers and a thumb, whatever you want to call it here, and they're having a sparring section. And so he's throwing four blades. We'd actually only be able to throw three unless you're holding two in the same area. So you only use four if you have four fingers and a thumb here. But anyway, he throws these knives at her, and she uses her power. Her power is to take sound and turn it into light, and uses those lights like lasers, and is able to create hard light, which I don't know if that's possible or not, but like a hologram thing. And so he missed one. It's gonna hit her, but Rogue shows up here, and Wolverine right now is leading the X-Men until Storm comes back. And he says, "Nice save, Rogue, but it wouldn't have been necessary." And she says, "I rather I let her die, Wolverine." And she says, "Would have taught that girl a lesson." And she says, "Cute boss." And so he tells Dazzler, "You were grandstanding with that ricochet stunt." Of course, he's got his cigar here. She's coughing, and she's like, do you mind your cigar or my voice? I'm a singer." And he's like, "I thought you were an X-Men. Which is it, girl? Make up your mind. This is no game. Don't show off. Just get the job done as quickly and simply and efficiency. And above all, be ready." And you can see his claws here come out, and you see the snicked. And so for anything, and this is awesome. This is a big money shot here. And in today's days, they would have used this probably as a big splash page here. And so the X-Men are now going to try to stop Wolverine here. And so Dazzler hits him with light in the, so you can see here, kind of dazing him. And Rogue tosses him, and she says, "Job's done, sugar. Bad guys beat." And she says, "Say, Uncle, real nice, and maybe I'll let you out finish your beer." And he says, "Fair move, darling, but you gotta watch this tendency to think the fight is over." And so he pulls her up, knocks her down, and puts his fingers there. And so now it's her turn to say "Uncle" here. And so helps her up and gives her a beer. And so kind of like a nice little training session. And so they've been searching for the Marauders, but nothing here. And then they ask about Havoc and Madelyne Prior. And Dazzler says, "How do you expect for them, it's as though their hearts have been torn out, maybe forever. So, all right. And so we now have Madelyne Prior here. Man, this is very Mark Silvestri ish. And so we pick up with Madelyne Prior here, and she's got a newspaper here in her hand about the mutant battle between the X-Men and the Marauders in San Francisco. And so she says, "How did I come here? Why me? What did I even do to deserve this?" And so you can see the Golden Gate Bridge and sunset or sunrise, one of the two. But and so Chris Claremont kind of gives us a little bit about her marriage to Scott, but it didn't even last uh, a year, or just a little over a year here. And Scott, of course, abandons them because he goes to New York to go find Jean Grey because of X Factor, which is a shitty move. So, but it wasn't Claremont or Louise Simonson's idea. This was editorial, who they had an idea to get the original X-Men together, and brought back Jean Grey. So I don't know. Anyway, so in X-Men 214, the Marauders go hunt Madelyne Prior. She doesn't know why, and that her kid had been stolen and they had left her for dead. And that will be so they haven't revealed why. Chris Claremont kind of worked on a story to with something about Madelyne Prior, which will be revealed in the future. So it says here she was in a coma for months, and when she woke up, the kid was taken. Everything about her had been disappeared. So like she never existed. And so then of course she talks about the previous two issues with the Marauders. She's angry and she's like, "Why? What's the point of being alive?" And it looks like she's gonna jump. Havoc is doing, I think he's at the bottom, running, and looks up and he's like, "Oh no, she's gonna jump!" And of course yells out, "Madelyne, don't!" And so back now in the Rockies, and Storm is nursing Naze, and I'm narrating this issue mostly because it's so wordy and there's a lot of drama. And when Claremont just gets too wordy, I think it's just better because otherwise this would be like a 40-minute video. So I have to try to condense all of Claremont's and just kind of give you an idea of what's going on. So she made him like a soup here, and she believes she used some of his knowledge to give it a little bit of medicine, a little bit of dry brush being put in there, and he wants her also to drink it. She says, "I'm not sick." He says, "Not yet," but he says the brew also prevents sickness, and so she goes ahead and takes it, and of course look at him smile because he is actually evil, but she doesn't know that. And suddenly there's a roar here, and she's like, "Claw, something huge smashing the wall to kindling. What is out there?" And it is a bear. And so it's the demon bear, similar to the one in New Mutants here. And so it's attacking Storm, and she goes out. I don't know where this weather came from, but hey, that's all right. And so she's like, it's supposed to be midsummer, but there's like an Arctic blizzard here. So, all right, and now she's being attacked by the snake here. And so something is definitely amiss here. She uses a chunk of ice, that's what this is here, to jam its mouth. And then she grabs it. She's got her knife and goes to tries to kill it. And look at all that food now. And so she jumps off, hangs on the cliff, and she's like, "What madness is this?" And so these are thought balloons. That's what these were called. And so they're she's not talking out loud. And so here comes a snake. You see one of its um, eyes have been missing, and she's like, "Great, I'm dead." Suddenly, there's an explosion, and she goes, "Those are bombs." And so we see now that there's like a Vietnam, and so remembering from Forge's past, so it was X-Men 186. I know it was 180 something. And so she's seeing that. So it's like Vietnam, but with demons here. And she sees Forge, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He says, "Enjoying myself, sweetheart." Is that a crime? What's the point of having power if it's never used? And so she goes to grab her hand, but of course it turns all metallic and stuff, similar to X-Men 220 with that eagle. And he's like, "I need you by my side," and she's like, "Never." He's like, "Stupid cow, as if you ever had a choice," and grabs her hand, and she also becomes. And so he kisses her, and then takes out her knife and stabs him, and he is apparently dead, but it was all an illusion. And it was Naze. He is making sure that she is ready to try to kill him. And look at this. You can look at this evil. Oh, it's very, very well done. And she's like, "I love Forge Naze, but because of what he is doing, what he has become, I shall destroy him." And that is what he wants. Very like Emperor Palpatine here. So, and so, Havoc climbs up, and they kind of have a talk, and she's like hanging out with the X-Men, but she's not a mutant, and she's now like part of her war. She just wants to be normal. And he tells her about Lorna, who is now under the influence of malice, and so she's with the Marauders here, and how he had attempted to kill her. And so these two are going to become friends, or a little bit more than friends. And so he's so upset that he tried to kill her. And by the way, he is Scott's brother. This is her brother-in-law. And so they hug, and he's like, "We can survive anything. That way, no matter what, we'll win." And she goes, "You sure?" And he goes, "Bet my life on it." And then she says, "Then chum, so will I." So together, with the X-Men, they're going to be a family, and a family takes care of each other. Next, The Dark Before the Dawn. So, as I mentioned, we're on the way to the Fall of the Mutants. So, Uncanny X-Men 223, a very nice fill-in by Kerry Gammill. So very, very good stuff. I like it. So, Rick Lenardi is also the best fill-in artist, and um, what was it? Oh, I already gave you the credit. Sorry, my cat is meowing and distracted me because I was like, "What the heck?" She is just desperate for attention right now. So anyway, like and subscribe. I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.